Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, sXeblues. This is going to be a brief little set of reviews for the DC Comics New 52 issues number 2, respectively, of Superboy, Superman, Batman, and The Flash. So let's kick this off with looking at Superboy number 2. And this is an issue that basically starts with a flashback to the last issue. It's just after Superboy has reacted to the scientists attempting to terminate him, and using some form of telekinesis, he literally explodes them from the inside out. And now he's being cradled in the arms of the woman known as Red, a woman he believes he can trust, or at least has interest in, because she seems to be the only one that actually sees him as more than just a thing. And there's a guard telling her, get away from here, we're going to destroy this thing. And this is when Superboy decides to use his telekinesis again. He decides to, as he puts it, study the potential threat these soldiers think they possess, and looks at all of their armaments and their armors and removes it from them step by step, until finally, in a strange panel, a hand gets put on his shoulder and he seems to get flung across the room and then is suddenly unconscious while everyone else is coming to. And we then jump ahead shortly thereafter to the current time, and we have Red continuing her argument with the evil character Templar, which is how the first issue in this series ended. He wants to pit Superboy against the proposed Teen Titans, Red, Robin, and the slowly forming rest of that crew. And it's only because of Red's insisting he's not ready, that Templar's actually held off from doing this. So basically, it's Templar's idea to send Superboy out on another mission. And in a very kind of surprise to me, they actually have Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke's daughter, Rose Wilson, as his team-up partner. Now, she does appear in the first issue, but I didn't actually know it was Rose Wilson. And that was a pleasant surprise to see, being that it all kind of brings it home on the Teen Titans front. But essentially, they go on this mission, which is said to be a sort of prison break type scenario, and but as it happens, it may or may not have been orchestrated by this character Templar. And Superboy and Rose fight the good fight against these giant beasts that look kind of like a cross between bipedal rhinos with shark teeth. I'm not exactly sure what species they are, but the fight eventually does kind of sort of seem to go foul, and I'm going to leave it at that point so I don't have to ruin the entire issue for you. I definitely suggest checking it out. But with showing a page in this particular issue, I love the sort of side shot on the one page of Rose Wilson in full form with the swords and everything like that, ready to do some ass-kicking, as it were. And overall, I just think this book looks really gorgeous, and so far it's a slightly different take on a familiar theme with Superboy, kind of akin to Young Justice. This one isn't quite following to the letter of what we've seen before, so I'm going to be rating this book 4 out of 5, and then I'll actually get us moving on to Superman number 2. And in this particular issue, we begin with Superman in a kind of melancholy. He's gazing over this huge star chart of where Krypton used to be located, and shortly thereafter enter Lois's dad, General Sam Lane. He's got intel of the fire creature from the first issue that Superman duked it out with, and the tension begins to rise when Lane questions Supes about why he's here on Earth. He suggests that his being here puts a lot of people in danger, and this is actually when the General starts to take a different tact with him. He starts kind of proddingly asking about his relationship with Lois, and this cues a flashback between Clark and Lois either earlier that day or earlier in the week, shortly after Lois has gotten her new job as the head of the TV wing of this new Daily Planet, as owned by Morgan Edge, all of which we saw in the first issue. And she's actually, kind of concerned about him because they're not going to be working together anymore, and he's partnered up with someone that he's probably not really that thrilled with, and he kind of just blows her off because he's got a lot on his mind, and as we saw at the beginning of this issue. So we cut back to the conversation between Supes and Sam is basically left implying that as long as Superman is around, he's a bigger threat than any of these threats that he could potentially face, because they're always going to be coming for him. And this, rightfully doesn't have him in that great of a mood as Superman flies off. We then shift over to a scene at a construction site where some cops have been called because there's a bum that they're trying to get off the property, and this guy refuses to leave. And as the cops go searching for him, he kind of makes his way down, I guess, a drain pipe or something. And we actually see his eyes begin to glow with this bright energy. Soon thereafter, we catch up with Superman doing a flyby over Metropolis, and he's suddenly struck by some unseen force, several times in fact. And with super hearing, he pieces together by the civilians on the ground watching this unfold that they can see whatever it is attacking him, but he is really sort of helpless because he has no idea where this thing is, what it is, and so on and so forth. As the battle between this creature and Superman ensues, Lois eventually, getting into high gear with the news crew and everything like that, has Jimmy point the cameras toward this creature, and this actually ends up helping Superman see it. As it happens, this turns the tides of the battle with, after a sort of brief little malady where Superman is thrown through a blimp and he has to fly off to save the civilians before they crash to the ground, he eventually throws the creature into a camera store, being sure to note that he made sure no one was in the place to be potentially harmed. And he basically dukes it out very easily then because he can see the creature on camera. He deduces that whatever this blindness that he had was something to do with his Kryptonian nature, and that, perhaps this creature knew that. And as with the fire creature from the first issue, after it's ready to sort of pass out or go away, the creature's last word is Krypton, and somewhat cryptically, if you will, no pun intended. But in any case, the issue leaves on a sort of ominous note with a couple of bums meeting in a hospital room, and with what we saw previously, I'll leave it at that. There's something coming, so to speak. But for showing a page in this particular issue, I want to show the one where as soon as Superman gets this thing into the camera store, we see the creature's O face. This is a mug that you would not want to see in a back alley, to be sure. And as far as rating this particular issue, I'm going to rate it 4 out of 5 because there's a lot of fantastic art, and the story was pretty entertaining, action-packed, and it was good all around. So that'll actually move us on to Batman number 2, and we begin this issue with a look at the old Wayne Tower in Gotham City. Bruce is telling us via sort of word bubbles the stats of the building as perhaps a tour guide might tell. And this happens just before we actually see him being thrown out of one of the top story windows. Cut to 24 hours earlier, and Batman is chasing a bunch of thieves on a railroad track on a bat cycle or some other type of vehicle. And all the while, Jim Gordon is viewing the autopsy of the mystery body that we see at the end of issue number 1. This is the body that has a message attached that Bruce Wayne will be the next person to die in the next 24 hours. So as Batman just makes it back to the Batcave and uses this sort of laser-guided virtual reality-like hookup to view the body from the morgue, he and Jim, go back and forth, and they've pieced together a clue, something to do with a nursery rhyme from the old days about owls or something to that effect. And of course, Batman Bruce dismisses it as nothing more than said nursery rhyme. So soon thereafter, we have Nightwing entering the Batcave, and Batman decides to question him because, as we saw in the previous issue, toward the end of it, the cliffhanger was that the DNA found under this victim's nails was actually that of Dick Grayson, Nightwing. So after Dick basically relays that yes, he has seen the cat, and it was at an event where this guy grabbed his arm, and as the cops, went to take him away, he scratched Dick's arm. That seems to be enough for Batman to be satisfied that, of course, Nightwing had nothing to do with this. Not that there should be too much doubt on his mind to begin with, being that they are former teammates. But we then cut to a meeting between Bruce and Lincoln March. This is a character we saw debuted in issue number 1 as a dude running for mayor of Gotham. And they're actually in Old Wayne Tower, which is where we saw Bruce gets thrown out of a window. Their discussion is interrupted by this owl-like baddie sort of cutting right to that nursery rhyme that Batman was so easily dismissing earlier. And as it happens, the owl baddie and Bruce sort of duke it out, fight it out. Eventually, they both get thrown out of the window, and this is when Bruce's words kind of come full circle in what he was describing about this old Wayne Tower. He was specifically talking about gargoyles, placed all around different levels of the building, and he actually mentions at this point a hidden gargoyle that not anyone except for himself would really ever know about, and this actually keeps him from falling to his death. The mystery ramps up with who this owl character is. We don't really know, and I'm going to leave it there because that's pretty much where the issue ends. And as far as whether or not this owl man makes it, I'll leave that to you, the reader, to go check out the book. But as far as showing a page in this issue, I want to go with the moment when the owl man, for lack of a better term, actually makes his debut. And it's a pretty snazzy little piece. And as far as rating this issue, I'm going to go 4 out of 5 because it was an entertaining read. So that'll actually move us on to The Flash, number 2. And in this particular issue, we start where we basically left off with issue number 1. Barry is confronted by a ton of clones of his is he dead or isn't he dead friend Manuel. And as he plays beat 'em up through this crowd, he shortly finds that he has to stop because they claim that they've kidnapped Iris West. And this is actually someone that Barry has had at least one date with, as some conversation later in this issue actually gives us hints of. But, after basically swiftly getting out of there once the clones have disbanded and making sure that Iris is okay and she's safe, he actually catches up with a friend of his, a Dr. Elias. And this cat has this ultra super treadmill setup meant to clock Flash's speed and see just how fast he can go, study what makes him go fast and everything. And I love the little reference to the cosmic treadmill. But they figure out that an outside force, which Flash fans will definitely recognize Barry has dubbed the Speed Force, and that this force is actually what fuels his super speed abilities and things. Yet, as Dr. Elias notes, his brain is still playing catch-up. It's still very slow and has yet to really unlock itself into this super speed framework. And this is something that Barry actually doesn't even realize he starts working on in the following scene when he meets with his friend Patty up on the rooftop of a building, and they discuss the body of his supposed friend Manuel, and she figures out that this body is not only a clone, but that there's cell regeneration, that after this body died, wounds have healed and things like that. So this mystery is definitely deepening and darkening. And, shortly thereafter, Barry actually has a call from Iris, and so he has to cut the conversation with Patty short. And as soon as he meets up with Iris, she actually begins questioning as to whether the Flash can be seen as guilty for having killed this cat, not really knowing any more than Barry had a familiarity with him. And this is when Barry's mind really goes into hyperspeed. Only now it's not just that he's actually thinking fast, but he's actually beginning to see multiple possibilities of things that haven't even happened yet, alternate possibilities of the coming minutes and how things are going to unfold. And he's actually able, with this power, to thwart a robbery and save a few lives in the process, knowing the variables of its surroundings in advance, and then being able to, scoot around as the Flash and, figure things out in a pretty epic little scene. And what basically follows in wrapping up this issue is a brief little flashback to when Barry first met his friend Manuel, and subsequently we see also what the clones who have successfully captured him are planning to do. They kind of hint at, why they have him and what their plan is to do with him. And the issue then ends with a sort of WTF moment in the form of what may or may not be like an EMP type of blast. And that's pretty much all I want to say on it, though, because it's an intriguing read, and I suggest you check it out. As for showing a page in this issue, it's going to be that moment when Barry is actually seeing all these variables of what can happen in the next few moments, and this allows him to save the day. Pretty epic page. And I'm going to be rating this book 4 out of 5. So that's going to be pretty much it for this DC New 52, 4 issues in 1 podcast review. I hope you've enjoyed what I had to say, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.